Look now, over the river to the west bank, where the sun sets every evening behind the Valley of the Kings. It is the shore of the dead, the beginning of eternity. It was there that the Pharaohs mingled with their people before embarking on their laborious journey to eternity. It is there that the Egyptologists found them. The city that the Greeks called Thebes once stood where Luxor is today, on the east bank of the Nile. Nothing is left today of Thebes itself other than the mighty ruins of the Temple of Karnak. With its imposing gates, halls and forests of pillars, it was the largest temple complex in the whole of ancient Egypt. Inside the temple was a forest of pillars which symbolized the palm trees that in Egyptian mythology grew on what was known as the island of creation, where they believed the world began. A recurring feature to be found in all Egyptian carvings is the Ankh, which was the pharaoh's symbol of health, happiness, and above all eternity. These figures are each seen holding one in their right hand. Egyptian gods and goddesses are seen extensively in statues, carvings and paintings. Many of them are depicted with the heads of animals. For instance, the sky god Horus has the head of a hawk. We see other figures here with the heads of animals, the significance of which has defied all comprehension. No other people or race has so closely identified animals with the divine. Elsewhere, in the West Bank's Valley of the Kings and Queens, there are dozens of tombs and various temples dedicated to the ancient rulers. The workmanship that went into providing suitable surroundings for the afterlife is awesome. As the worshipper penetrated into the temple, he passed from the bright sunlight of the outside world into the deepening darkness of the great halls, toward the mystery of the innermost shrine which contained the image of the god. This shrine was barred to all except the king and the priests. The pharaohs had a fervent and unswerving belief in a life after death, and elaborate mummification procedures were undertaken to assure that a dead person would travel safely to a new life in the land of the dead. The tombs are particularly interesting for their murals, which include scenes of the afterlife from the Book of the Dead, and scenes of the sun god's night journey through the underworld in a boat. The immense wealth of the pharaohs was spent on the construction of gigantic temples, adorned with statues, obelisks, sphinxes, vivid reliefs, and wall paintings. The sound of young local children on a visit to this site that their ancestors built over 5,000 years ago is a reminder that there is more to this country than just the pharaohs and their tombs. A cruise along the Nile, on board a small tourist vessel, gives a glimpse of life in this day and age. The pharaohs were interred in tombs along with fabulous riches, but nowadays, in stark contrast, most of the population find life is a constant uphill struggle. This has been the means used for centuries to irrigate land close to the Nile, although in many places now electric pumps do the same work. The economy of the country has always depended on two things: the Nile and the sun. Every year, Normally in July, the great river overflows its banks, spreading over them a black and fertile mud in which the crops, warmed by the sun, quickly grow. Egypt's climate, hot all year round, gives tourism the element it needs to prosper, but eking out any sort of living is a back-breaking chore for this man and many others like him. The sound of prayers being offered up at local mosques, something which occurs 7 times daily, beckons one away from the Egyptians at work along the Nile. A visit to towns and villages away from the river confirms that here too life is very austere. In spite of everything, though, the people are very friendly towards tourists, often inviting them into their simple homes, an opportunity perhaps to earn a little money to supplement their meagre wages. A trip in a horse-drawn caleche enables one to observe life in a souk, or Egyptian market. Almost anything, including foodstuffs, can be bought here in the open air. Not to be missed is the chance to see the temples of the West Bank from the air, and soaring over the region gives one some idea of the pains to which the Pharaohs went in their quest to achieve eternal life. Perhaps the Pharaohs didn't quite succeed in overcoming death, but it's amazing that today, in the depths of their sarcophagi, we can still see carvings and paintings depicting the great rulers, their faces still recognisable after 30 centuries of sleep. Look now, over the river to the West Bank, where the sun sets every evening behind the Valley of the Kings. It is the shore of the dead, the beginning of the beyond.